So the Renaissance Fair wrapped up a couple weeks ago. And true confessions, I am one of those people who are seriously into it. And since childhood, seriously, I have a whole portion of my closet that's filled with velvet and corsets and plumes and gauze clothes and you name it. I have seen more jousts and flirted with more knights than you can imagine. But reeling back to May 1976, long before any of you were born, spring was in the air. And when I wasn't at the Renaissance Fair, my 20th century life was all about music. I played keyboards in a band, worked as a rock journalist, and hung out on the scene. So does anyone remember a band called Deep Purple? Yeah, Smoke on the Water, my woman from Tokyo, Highway Star, all that, right? And how about their guitar player, Richie Blackmore? Amazing, right? Went on to have Blackmore's Rainbow with Ronnie James Dio, the heavy metal vocalist. So Pam, a close fellow fair-going friend of mine, was also good friends with Richie Blackmore. And one night, leaving the fair, still in full Renaissance garb, we decided to go drop by his Hollywood Hills home. So I was a tad shy of showing up in our long dresses and lace bodices. I still had a garland of flowers on my head. But Pam dismissed my concern. And she was right. Richie's interest in the fair was immediately palpable, and it really caught me off guard. He wanted to know where this fair of ours was, about the music, the artisans, the costumes, everything. I loved how it captured his imagination and that he was so excited. And before long, he brought into the conversation his belief in reincarnation and told us of his connection to a former life in Renaissance England. It was my turn to be fascinated. I learned that he had always adored Renaissance-era music and stealthily infused it into all that great rock guitar he was known for. Who knew, right? I mean, so as we joined him on a long wooden bar, he had in his living room a sparkling panorama of LA behind him, and in front of him a stein of dark German beer and sheet music for the Baroque composer Henry Purcell. It was the kind of music we had just been listening to at the fair a short while before. He told us that Hugh McDowell, the cellist from Electric Light Orchestra, do we remember that? Okay. Was coming over so they could play Purcell, Green Sleeves, and all that kind of music. It was so serendipitous. But I mentioned to Richie that I loved Purcell's music. I loved that jaunty elegance. That I played some keyboards and, I knew a bit about classical music, even though I probably didn't look like it. I could see that he was dubious of my claims. He pushed the sheet music across the bar, literally, and challenged me to read the notes on the staff, which I easily did. I passed the test. And after that, Richie was always kind and generous to me. In fact, in the months that followed, he came to believe that we actually knew each other in that other lifetime. Maybe it was that he first met me in my Renaissance clothes, or maybe it's absolutely true. But he told me in the 16th century, he was known as Donald, the Celtic name for dark stranger. and that he was quite certain that I had been his niece. In the months that followed, while Richie Donald partied in Hollywood like the self-respecting pop star he was, he always treated me like a little princess, like a niece. And before we left his house that first evening, Pam invited Richie to join us at the fair the following weekend. He jumped at it. So the next Saturday morning, we set out for the Shire with Richie Blackmore, Ian, his man Friday, Hugh McDowell, Ronnie James Dio, and Ronnie's wife, Wendy. Each decked out in the finest rented the Velvet Renaissance Fair outfits, the stuff of royals. Hearing the first glimmers of harp and scribbles of the piper, we entered the gates of the pleasure fair to a chorus of "Good morrow, good sir, prithee and hail and well met." Richie's face, his entire demeanor transformed, softened, almost transcendent. I watched him fall in love with the fair as I had many years before. He looked as if he had come home to an enveloping recreation of the late 16th century. And after a long, steamy day of exotic and farcical performances, admiring skilled craftspersons, carousing with lusty wenches, relentless jesters, technicolor fairies, and a lot of drunks in tights and Robin Hood hats, all blathering, needless to say, in a jumble of Elizabethan English. Richie could not stand to let it end. He insisted we bring the party with us. He wanted us to invite a cadre of fair performers back to the Rainbow Bar and Grill on the Sunset Strip for feast and ale. Now, Hollywood is nowhere near the Agoura Hills, where the fair was in those days. Still, an opportunity to go to a 20th century after party hosted by Richie Blackmore was irresistible to some. And a dozen or so fair types, a juggler, a poet, a baker, and others in full Renaissance gear piled into their vans and joined us as we huzzaed our way into the Hollywood night, taking over 3 large tables with Richie Blackmore holding court. So guitarist Jeff Beck and Blackmore's rainbow bass player Jimmy Bain came wandering in, and seeing the unlikely gathering, were too entranced not to join the festivities. They were so not dressed correctly, honestly. And although we were very happy to have them during the party. So I don't think it's presumptuous to say that I believe that day changed Richie Blackmore's life. In the years that followed, the Renaissance and Renaissance fairs became underlying themes of his and his wife Candace Knight's music, not the least their song Renaissance Fair. And although the fair's authenticity may have waned through the decades, with less effort given to the costumes and the accents, I personally still can't miss the season. Like Richie, the fair and its magic still reside deeply in the marrow of my bones. And each year, along with a new generation, I see those who have weathered the decades as long as I have. Actors, vendors, royals, peasants, wenches, fairies, and fools who return again and again to slip into the Shire magic. And perhaps a world I shared in some variation long ago with my very musical Uncle Donald. Thank you.